display team. Andy, tell me what it's going to be doing.
Well, good morning to all of you. You can see the ship now trying to taxi forward to get themselves into position to depart. They've got the Royal Air Force Falcon display team down the back. They've just flown in from Brive Norton. We'll be able to hand over to the Falcons at about 12 o'clock for their drop. So what you're going to see is the aircraft go up, do the early prep work for that drop, and the Falcons are busy at work on the ground as well, getting into position on the drop zone, and you'll hear more about that shortly. The aircraft's going to climb up to about 5,000 feet or so and start that early prep. And then at about 12 o'clock, you're going to see the boys exit via the ramp and make their return to terra firma here at Cosford.
So we're getting a double dose of Chinook as well, which is always delightful.
That aircraft in front of us, ironically, is older than Bravo November. ZA681 getting airborne there, and she's due to be retired soon as well. Whether she'll find her way into a museum or going elsewhere is yet to be seen. But Bravo November, as I said, behind us, ZA718, one of the most famous Chinooks in the world. And her history dates all the way back to the Falkland Islands. In 1982, that conflict there, it had only been delivered less than 2 years prior when Argentina invaded the Falkland Islands. And it was the only aircraft to survive the sinking of the Atlantic conveyor when those missiles. And there we go, straight into the pedal turn. Schmitty's now going to position the aircraft out to the left-hand side, and he's going to position 30 degrees off the axis to then run back in after a wing over. Attitudes and everything that Schmitty needs as he's looking out of the aircraft at low level, making sure his eyes stay out of the aircraft the entire time. And as they come around the top of that manoeuvre, Flinney is now switching his attention from the instruments and talking about the angles of the bank to looking at the airfield and telling Schmitty whether he needs to tighten that manoeuvre or slacken it off to make sure he runs back in on axis. And at this point, Schmitty will now be visual with back onto looking at distance to run to trigger the pull-up into a double nose over, what we call the roller coaster. And they're going to adjust that pull-up today based on wind, a little bit of wind, but not very much today. So broadly speaking, the distances won't have changed too much today for that pull-up. And what Schmitty's doing at this moment is looking right out of the aircraft, trying to see the apparent ground speed, that's the speed that he's travelling over the ground, drop to zero. And as it's almost at that point, he's pitching the nose forward to make sure that Chinook's coming down again, gathering forward airspeed. Flinney is pattering or talking about his nose up, which they don't want to go past 50 degrees. They're aiming to get 50 degrees exactly on the instrument before they then pitch down at the same angle. Out to the right-hand side now, we're going to see another offset wing over, so setting 30 degrees to the left before they come round. This one a little easier, because Schmitty's got good view out to the side. And as they come back in, we're going to see a single nose over, and what we're going to try and do is get you onto the display frequency to hear Flinney providing this commentary to Schmitty. Head-up display in this aircraft to assist Schmitty knowing what height he is. He's making that judgment based on what he sees and what Flynn is saying. In the wave now as they come past, this is the wing waggle to say hello to all of you at Cosford here this afternoon. You see the ramps going down now, and that's as for the preparations for the crewmen to have their big moment in this display, they're moving around in the cabin at different parts of this display, so their movement is very carefully timed to the safest parts of the routine for them to make those moves. We're going to see a 270 turn now going into a quick stop, which is a technique we use to bring the aircraft to a very, very fast stop if we see troops late on the battlefield because they've been under cover or we've been running in at very low level. This quick stop incredibly difficult to fly, but Schmidt is very well practiced at doing so. And there we go, presenting both discs to the airflow, bringing the aircraft to a stop. And we're now going to go into what we call the sideways trawl, so everyone make sure you're waving back there at the crewmen on the ramp. So we have 2 crew on board this aircraft today because we needed to carry 2 in order to drop the RAF Falcons, whereas normally we would just have 1 for the display. We've got Sergeant Scotty Morris. Scotty joined the RAF in 2009 as a logistics supplier. He's deployed to Afghanistan before becoming aircrew, and he joined all of us on 27 Squadron in 2018. He spent 4 years on the squadron now, and he has already deployed to Mali on support to the French operation out there, and to the Middle East. Sergeant Dan Hine also on the aircraft today, and I believe that's Dan waving to you at the moment. Originally from South Africa, Dan joined the RAF in 2015. He trained as a weapons system operator, and he joined us on 27 Squadron in 2018. I'd like to say hello to Dan's mum, who has joined us today all the way from South Africa, so quite a long way to see Dan displaying here today. Big moment there, and also Dan's wife, Navi. As they get to the end of the display line there, Dan's got to very quickly get that ramp up, which you'll see happening. There we go. So that if the aircraft was engaged anywhere in that valley, then one of those weapons was going to be able to deal with the threat straight away. And as they get to the top there, Schmitty getting the nose down, left-hand turn, 405 degrees of turn to do here in descent, before they run in parallel to the crowd for another wing over prior to the next manoeuvre. Nose stays down, airspeed builds as he goes. Schmitty now looking left across the cockpit, across Flinny, who's been helping him all the way to find that display data and that display line again. And then crucially making sure they have 120 knots, straight and level, for the next manoeuvre. Now, one of the things we can't hand side, this is a manoeuvre we use if we have had an issue with the aircraft. So if it is power limited, we want to use as little power as possible to land the aircraft. We won't come to the hover. We'll run the aircraft straight onto the ground like this. And again, this is a key moment where both the crewman and the co-pilot are assisting in getting the aircraft configured for this. Back wheels touch down. Smitty brings the cyclic, that's the control between his legs, back towards him to make sure that the front of the aircraft stays in the air, and then reduces power to make sure that the back of the aircraft effectively acts heavier than the front to get that aircraft slowing onto the runway. And as he comes to 0 knots there, you're going to see him do something that we don't practice regularly and is very much part of the display sequence, and that is take this manoeuvre backwards. Now this is not easy to do because of course he is staring forwards, this aircraft into the air and up here in the first place. Without them, the Chinook display would not happen at all. So give them one big wave, they're going to then go for an over-shoulder departure, which is a departure profile we use when departing a landing site with the threat in the 12 o'clock or directly in front of us. And they're going to disappear away. So to all of you, thank you.
You know, that skill set going forwards in life. It sounds like a really exciting university society in some respects. I guess, though, the idea is you want people to join the Air Force at the end of the day. We'd like some of them to join the Air Force, you know, as many as possible, but that's not necessarily the sole purpose of what we're established to do. We say maybe 30 or 40% of officers going forwards will have come from a university of, not necessarily Birmingham, but a University Air Squadron background across, the RAF writ large. But those that don't necessarily go on to join, we still want them to gain as much as they can from their time on the squadron, and also take that off into
whatever it is they do next, whether that's industry or politics or medicine, whatever they go into, that they've got that positive experience of defence, but also the skills that they learn with us.
Now, here at the air show today,